Welcome, dear listeners, to a journey where reality blurs and the unknown takes the stage. You are about to enter a world not bound by the laws of nature or the constraints of time, a world where the unexplained reigns supreme and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. This is Shadows at the Crossroads, a place where mysteries unfold at the intersection of the normal and the paranormal. Each episode, a gateway opens to tales that will chill your spine and challenge your perception of reality. So dim the lights, settle in, and prepare to be immersed in the chilling tapestry of suspense and the supernatural. Your journey into the unknown begins now. David gripped the steering wheel of his aging Honda, cruising comfortably down the old two-lane highway. The setting sun cast a golden hue over the landscape, a view he'd cherished on his many drives to visit his sister. Today, the road felt particularly welcoming, a familiar escape from his bustling city life. David had a deep appreciation for the natural beauty and wildlife he would come across on his drives. The journey was often a solitary one, with few other vehicles or people in sight. As dusk approached, he remained vigilant for the occasional elk or deer that might wander near the road. As David continued his journey, the miles melting away under his car's steady hum, he fiddled with the radio dial. He was in search of his favorite late-night talk show, a comforting companion on these long drives. However, all he found was static, a crackling white noise that filled the car, an unexpected and unwelcome occurrence. He rotated the dial back and forth, seeking any sign of a clear signal, but the static persisted, stubborn and unyielding. David glanced at his phone, hoping perhaps to stream a podcast instead, but he was met with disappointment. The signal bar was empty, the screen displaying a stark no service icon. He found this odd, though not entirely surprising, given the remote nature of his route. It was not uncommon to lose signal in these parts, but it rarely happened simultaneously with the radio malfunction. He placed the phone back in its holder with a slight shrug, dismissing the incident as a minor inconvenience, albeit a slightly unusual one in its timing. The quietness of the road and the absence of his usual auditory entertainment left him alone with his thoughts, the car's engine the only soundtrack to his solitary drive. David pressed on, his unease growing with each passing mile. The landscape around him, once so familiar, now took on a ghostly quality. Every now and then he would pass a gas station or a solitary house, but they were far from the havens of activity they used to be. Instead, they stood desolate, silent sentinels in the growing dusk. Windows in the buildings were shattered, gaping open like unseeing eyes, and the structures themselves seemed to sag with neglect. Here and there, cars were abandoned haphazardly along the road, their doors ajar or windows broken, left as if their occupants had fled in a hurry. The streets, normally bustling with life at this hour, were eerily empty, devoid of both people and the usual evening sounds of domestic life. A cold shiver traced its way down David's spine, a physical manifestation of the deepening mystery surrounding him. Questions swirled in his mind, each more unsettling than the last. What cataclysmic event had turned these once lively places into hollow shells? Was he somehow mistaken in his route, or had something unthinkable happened to the world he knew? The silence was oppressive, the absence of human presence deeply disconcerting. It felt as if he had driven into a forgotten realm, a place suspended in time. David's grip tightened on the steering wheel, a mixture of fear and determination setting in. He needed answers, and the only way to find them was to keep moving forward, deeper into the unknown. For hours, David drove through the desolate landscape, his mind teeming with unanswered questions. Just when the weight of the eerie silence and the unchanging desolation seemed too much to bear, a flicker of light appeared in the distance. His heart quickened with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Finally, he whispered to himself, a small beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. As he drew nearer, the source of the light became clear. It wasn't the welcoming glow of a settlement or a sign of normalcy as he had hoped, but rather 3 figures carrying torches and moving with purposeful haste towards the forest. Their sudden appearance in this abandoned world was both startling and unsettling. Initially, the figures seemed startled by the sight of his car, a rare moving object in this still world. They hesitated, then retreated into the shadows of the trees as if frightened. David, driven by a desperate need for answers, stopped the car and called out, his voice echoing in the still night. "Please help me. I don't know what is happening. I swear I won't hurt you." From the depths of the forest, an old man emerged, his face etched with the lines of time and hardship, resembling the weathered leather of a well-read book. He regarded David with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Son, how did you get a working car? I haven't seen one of those in years." David's confusion deepened, his brow furrowing. I left my house just a few hours ago. I was going to visit my sister. I don't understand why everything looks so abandoned, so overgrown. What year is it now?" The old man's gaze lingered on David, a mix of disbelief and sympathy in his eyes. "Well, it's 2038, he replied with a matter-of-fact tone. David's world seemed to tilt on its axis, the color drained from his face, and he shook his head in denial. "That's impossible. When I left, it was 2023. The reality of the old man's words, the surreal nature of his journey, the overwhelming sense of displacement, it all converged in a dizzying rush. David's vision blurred, the edges of his consciousness fraying as he felt himself slipping into darkness. And then, nothing. As David's consciousness slowly returned, he found himself surrounded by the three men, their faces etched with concern as they gently helped him sit up. The old man, who seemed to be their leader, looked down at David with a solemn expression. "Son, I'm not sure what bizarre twist of fate brought you here, but the world as you knew it in 2023, it's long gone. Society crumbled, political and social disasters. Those of us who survived, we've had to rebuild from scratch, relying on old-world skills and knowledge, as most modern technology is now defunct." David's mind reeled from the revelation, but a more pressing concern quickly surfaced. His sister, Lauren. She had been his anchor in life, especially after they lost their parents at a young age. Lauren had stepped in to fill the void, becoming both a sister and a parental figure to him. The thought of her, potentially alone or in danger, brought a new wave of determination to find her. "My sister, Lauren. She has a farm about 10 miles from here. Do you know if there are any survivors there?" With trembling hands, he pulled out a worn picture from his wallet, showing him and Lauren in happier times. The old man's eyes softened as he looked at the photo. A smile, tinged with relief, crossed his face. "I know your sister, Lauren. She's very much alive. We're actually heading back to her farm now. We were out on a scouting mission to find resources and check on neighboring areas." Relief flooded through David, so potent it nearly overwhelmed him. He reached out and embraced the old man in a heartfelt hug, gratitude shining in his eyes. "How about you three come with me in the car? We can get to her much faster that way." The suggestion seemed to bridge a gap between them, a shared goal uniting them in this strange, new world. The men exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and curiosity in their expressions. The idea of traveling by car, a relic of a bygone era, seemed almost revolutionary. With a nod of agreement, they gathered their belongings, ready to embark on the journey with David. As they set off towards Lauren's farm, David felt a surge of hope. Despite the world having changed beyond recognition, the possibility of reuniting with his sister offered a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness of the new world he had found himself in. As David and Lauren sat down to catch up on the lost years, he learned about the turbulent times that followed his disappearance in 2023. Lauren, with a mix of sorrow and relief in her eyes, recounted how society had unraveled over the subsequent years. She had searched desperately for him in the chaos, but as the world crumbled, communication channels broke down, and David was nowhere to be found. Eventually, with a heavy heart, she had accepted the likelihood that he was gone forever. The revelation that David was still the same age as when he vanished, while she had aged over a decade, added a layer of surrealism to their reunion. Lauren described how the community they now lived in was a collective effort of the local farms and residents of her small town. As society collapsed and cities became untenable, people from urban areas fled to the countryside, seeking refuge. Lauren's farm, along with others, became a sanctuary for these stragglers. However, the influx of people brought its own challenges. Resources were scarce, and the initial years were fraught with danger as everyone struggled to adapt to this new way of life. Most city dwellers, unaccustomed to the rigors of rural living, didn't survive the harsh new world. It was the rural areas, with their inherent self sufficiency and knowledge of land and agriculture, that stood a chance. Lauren's community, driven by a sense of solidarity and survival, worked tirelessly to build a self sustaining way of life. They pooled their skills, resources, and strengths to create a semblance of stability in an unstable world. Those early years, as Lauren recounted, were marked by hardship and peril. But through their collective efforts, the community not only survived but began to thrive. They relearned forgotten skills, adapted old techniques, and forged a strong bond that was the cornerstone of their survival. David listened, a mix of awe and sadness in his heart. He mourned the world he had lost, but found solace in the resilience and determination of the community that had become his sister's new family. Now, unexpectedly reunited, they faced the future together, a testament to the enduring human spirit in the face of adversity. Since David's disappearance, the family dynamics had undergone significant changes. Lauren, with a wistful smile, introduced him to the expanded family. His two nephews, whom he remembered as boisterous toddlers, had grown into strapping teenagers, their faces reflecting the resilience and maturity forged by the challenges of their new world. To David's surprise and honor, he learned that Lauren had named her third son after him, a touching tribute that brought a lump to his throat. And there was also the newest addition to the family, his first niece, a spirited little girl with a curiosity that seemed undimmed by the hardships around her. As David adjusted to his unexpected leap into the future, he found the community not just welcoming, but eager to integrate him into their fold. He was fascinated by the way life had transformed, and he threw himself into learning everything he could about their ways of survival. The community had mastered the art of self-sufficiency, from growing their own food to repurposing old technology for new uses. David found himself drawn to these activities, eager to contribute and find his place in this new world. He learned to tend to the crops, to understand the rhythms of the land in a way he never had before. He listened to stories of how they had rebuilt structures, how they had come together to defend against external threats, and how they preserved what little technology they could salvage. Every day was a learning experience, filled with the nuances of a life so drastically different from what he had known. Despite the initial shock and disorientation, David found a sense of purpose in this community. He was moved by their solidarity and their unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. They had created something extraordinary out of the ruins of the old world, a testament to human resilience and adaptability. As he lay down each night, under a sky unmarred by city lights, David felt a deep connection to these people, his newfound family, and a resolve to help forge a path forward in this uncharted new existence. We hope you enjoyed this first episode of Shadows at the Crossroads. Like and subscribe to our channel for future episodes of this and other shows brought to you by the crew at Glowing Monkey Systems.